I pulled into my parents' driveway on that sunny October afternoon, watching my 8-year-old son, Jake, bounce excitedly in his booster seat. He clutched a handmade card for Grandma Susan, carefully drawn with crayons and covered in glitter hearts. The moment we stepped through the front door, my 13-year-old nephew Tyler shoved Jake hard enough to send him sprawling across the hardwood floor. "You're broke, so you don't matter," Tyler spat, standing over my bleeding child. My brother Marcus immediately pointed his finger at me and snarled, "Apologize to my son or get out." My parents sat in their recliners, smiling and nodding like this was perfectly normal behavior. The drive to my childhood home in suburban Dallas had been filled with Jake's excited chatter about seeing his grandparents and cousin. As a software engineer pulling 60-hour weeks at TechFlow Solutions, these Sunday dinners represented my only real family time. Jake had spent the morning carefully crafting that card using every crayon in his 64 pack and applying glitter with the precision of a master artist. His pure joy at sharing this creation with the people he thought loved him made my chest tighten with warmth. Walking up the familiar brick pathway, I noticed Marcus's Ford F-150 gleaming in the afternoon sun. The monthly payments of $450 that I covered had kept that truck sparkling in their driveway for the past 2 years. Inside the house, the scent of Susan's famous pot roast filled the air, a tradition that connected me to childhood memories when family meant unconditional love and support. Tyler appeared in the foyer like a predator, sensing weakness. At 13, he towered over Jake with the cruel confidence of someone who had never faced real consequences. His expensive Meadowbrook Academy polo shirt and designer jeans represented the $1,500 I transferred monthly to keep him in that prestigious private school. The irony wasn't lost on me that my generosity funded his sense of superiority. "Look what the poor people brought," Tyler announced loudly enough for everyone to hear. Jake's face crumpled with confusion as he tried to process the hostility from someone he idolized. When Jake held out his glittery masterpiece, Tyler deliberately knocked it from his small hands, watching the card flutter to the ground like a wounded butterfly. The shove came without warning. Tyler's hands connected with Jake's chest, sending my son backwards across the polished floor. Jake's knee scraped against the doorframe, instantly drawing blood through his torn khakis. The sound of his small body hitting the ground echoed through the entryway like a gunshot. "Boys will be boys." Marcus chuckled from the living room, not even bothering to look up from his football game. Susan emerged from the kitchen, immediately rushing to Tyler's side to coo over him like he was the injured party. "Are you okay, sweetheart? Did you hurt your hand?" She fussed completely, ignoring Jake's tears and bleeding knee. Robert shuffled over in his house slippers, glancing down at Jake with obvious irritation. "You need to toughen up, boy," he told my 8-year-old son. "Learn to stand up for yourself instead of crying like a little girl. Your daddy can't fight your battles forever." The words hit me like physical blows. These were the people I had supported financially for 3 years, the family I thought appreciated my sacrifices. Marcus approached me with that familiar expression of entitled expectation, the same look he wore whenever he needed money for Tyler's school activities or truck repairs. "Edward, you need to teach your boy some respect." Marcus declared, his voice carrying the authority of someone who believed he held moral high ground. Tyler was just defending himself against Jake's aggressive behavior. "The least you can do is apologize to my son for raising such a disrespectful child." The room fell silent except for Jake's quiet sniffles. Susan and Robert watched expectantly, their smiles growing wider as they waited for me to comply with their twisted version of justice. Tyler stood behind his father, smirking with the satisfaction of someone who had successfully manipulated every adult in the room. That's when Marcus dropped the bombshell that would change everything. "I told Tyler the truth about our family dynamic," he announced proudly. He knows you're just the family ATM, and rich people need to know their place when it comes to helping real families like ours. My parents nodded approvingly, as if this revelation was not only acceptable, but praiseworthy. The foundation of everything I believed about family loyalty cracked beneath my feet, revealing a hollow space where genuine love should have existed. In the bathroom, I knelt beside Jake as he sat on the closed toilet seat, his small body trembling with pain and confusion. The scrape on his knee was deeper than I initially thought, requiring careful cleaning with hydrogen peroxide and antibiotic ointment. His tears had stopped, but the hurt in his dark brown eyes cut deeper than any physical wound. "Why did Tyler hurt me, Daddy?" Jake whispered, his voice barely audible above the running water. "I thought he liked me." As I applied a large bandage, decorated with cartoon superheroes, my mind began connecting dots I had deliberately ignored for 3 years. Every family gathering, every holiday celebration, every casual phone call had included a financial request within 48 hours. The pattern was so consistent it couldn't be coincidental. Christmas 2 years ago, Tyler needed dental braces costing $4,000. Marcus called on December 26th, his voice heavy with manufactured desperation. "Edward, you know how important Tyler's smile is for his future. You wouldn't want your nephew to suffer because his dad can't afford proper dental care." Easter last year, Marcus's truck required transmission repairs totaling $2,000. The call came while I was still digesting holiday ham. "Brother, I hate to ask, but without my truck, I can't get to job interviews. You're literally holding my future in your hands." 4th of July weekend, Robert needed new hearing aids after his insurance denied coverage. $3,000 vanished from my savings account because family takes care of family, and Dad shouldn't have to struggle in silence. Thanksgiving last year, Susan's washing machine died flooding their basement. $800 disappeared faster than leftover turkey, because your mother deserves basic appliances after everything she's done for this family. The mental accounting was staggering. Tyler's private school tuition alone had cost me $45,000 over 3 years. Add the truck payments, emergency repairs, medical bills, and countless smaller requests, and my total family investment exceeded $65,000. That money could have paid off my student loans, funded a substantial down payment on a house, or secured Jake's college education. But the financial cost paled compared to the personal sacrifices. I drove my 3-year-old Honda Accord while paying for Marcus's truck. I lived in a modest 2-bedroom apartment while covering their mortgage when they faced foreclosure. Most painfully, I had ended my relationship with Sarah Martinez because she couldn't understand why my family's needs always took priority over our future together. "You're choosing them over us," Sarah had said during our final conversation 6 months ago. "I can't compete with people who view your success as their personal piggy bank." I had defended my family, then explaining that loyalty meant sacrifice and that successful people had obligations to help those struggling. Sarah's prediction haunted me now as I watched Jake struggle to understand why his cousin could hurt him without consequences. Returning to the living room with my bandaged son, I noticed Tyler deliberately, accidentally, spilling grape juice across the front of Jake's new shirt. The purple stain spread across the white fabric like spilled blood, while Marcus laughed appreciatively at his son's clumsiness. "Oops," Tyler said with theatrical innocence. "I guess Jake should learn to move faster when people are trying to drink." That's when Tyler made the announcement that shattered my remaining illusions about family loyalty. Standing in the center of the living room like a prosecutor delivering closing arguments, he declared loudly enough for everyone to hear, "My dad says your dad has to pay for things because he feels guilty about being better than us." The adults froze momentarily, realizing Tyler had revealed too much of their private conversations. But instead of correction or embarrassment, Marcus nervously laughed and muttered something about Tyler being dramatic. Nobody, not one single family member, contradicted Tyler's statement or defended my character. From the kitchen, I heard Susan's voice carrying clearly through the thin walls as she spoke to her sister Martha on speakerphone. Training Edward properly has been easier than we expected, she bragged with obvious pride. He'll pay for anything if you just mention family guilt and obligation. Martha, you were absolutely right about the psychology of successful people, desperately trying to buy love and acceptance. The conversation continued as Susan described their upcoming plans to request $3,000 for Tyler's summer camp in Colorado and $8,000 for a family vacation to Disneyland. Edward won't be invited, obviously, Susan clarified, but he'll pay, because that's what guilty rich people do when they want to feel important to their families. Standing in that doorway listening to my mother describe me like a trained animal performing for treats, I felt something fundamental shift inside my chest. The family I had loved and supported for 32 years didn't actually exist. In its place stood a group of calculating strangers who had spent 3 years systematically extracting money from someone they viewed as emotionally desperate and financially exploitable. Dinner conversation unfolded like a masterclass in psychological manipulation disguised as casual family discussion. Susan served her famous pot roast on the good china, the same plates I had helped purchase when their dishwasher flooded the kitchen 2 years ago. Marcus carved the meat with surgical precision, his movements confident and entitled as he held court at the head of the table. Edward, I've been thinking about your transportation situation. Marcus began between bites of perfectly seasoned beef. That Honda Accord doesn't really represent our family properly. People see you driving something so modest, and they start wondering if you're really successful or just pretending. Robert nodded sagely from his position at Susan's right hand. Your brother makes an excellent point. Image matters in business, and your car makes us all look like we're struggling financially. The conversation felt surreal, like watching actors perform a script written by someone with no understanding of normal family dynamics. They discussed my vehicle choices, my clothing, my apartment, and my lifestyle, as if these decisions required their approval and input. Every topic eventually circled back to money and my supposed obligations to fund their vision of proper family representation. Speaking of representation, Susan added sweetly, we really think you should consider buying a bigger house. Something with enough bedrooms for family visits and holiday gatherings. That little apartment of yours barely has space for Jake, let alone proper entertaining areas. Tyler had spent the entire meal systematically tormenting Jake with the practiced cruelty of someone who had never faced meaningful consequences. Under the table, he deliberately stepped on Jake's feet whenever adults weren't looking directly. When Jake tried to cut his meat, Tyler would accidentally bump his elbow, causing gravy to spill across Jake's plate. Jake's staring at me weird, Tyler announced during the main course, his voice carrying the perfect blend of innocence and accusation. It's making me uncomfortable. Can't you teach him better manners? Stop staring at your cousin. Robert instructed Jake, automatically not bothering to investigate whether the accusation was accurate. Good boys know how to behave properly at the dinner table. Jake's confusion was heartbreaking to witness. He kept glancing between Tyler and me, trying to understand why his cousin could hurt him repeatedly, while he faced criticism for simply existing in the same space. His small hands shook slightly as he attempted to eat around Tyler's constant harassment. The financial discussions grew more explicit as the meal progressed. Marcus mentioned that Tyler needed new football equipment for the upcoming season, casually assuming I would take care of it, like always. Susan brought up her desire to redecorate the guest room, suggesting colors and furniture styles as if my checkbook was already open and ready. Of course, we'll need to coordinate with Edward's schedule. Susan said, since he'll be funding the project, we want to make sure he approves of how his money gets spent. The casual assumption of my financial responsibility felt like being buried alive under layers of entitlement and expectation. These people had transformed my voluntary generosity into mandatory obligation without ever asking my permission or acknowledging my sacrifice. During dessert service, Marcus stood up with his coffee cup raised like he was delivering a toast at a wedding reception. I want to say something important about family responsibility and gratitude, he announced with the gravity of someone about to share profound wisdom. Successful people like Edward have obligations to their families that go beyond normal relationships. Money creates responsibility, and Edward owes us for all the support we gave him growing up. Every dollar we spent on his education, every meal we provided, every roof we put over his head, created a debt that needs to be repaid with interest. The speech continued as Marcus outlined his philosophy of family economics, explaining how my success belonged partially to everyone who had contributed to my upbringing and development. Edward should actually be grateful we allow him to help us, Marcus concluded. It gives his life meaning and makes him feel important in ways his money and career never could. Robert applauded quietly, while Susan beamed with pride at her eldest son's wisdom. Tyler watched the performance with obvious satisfaction, absorbing lessons about manipulation and entitlement that would shape his character for years to come. That's when Tyler delivered the final blow that shattered any remaining illusions about family love and loyalty. Standing up from his chair with theatrical timing, he looked directly at me and announced, "Uncle Edward, my dad says you pay for everything because you don't have a real family of your own, just Jake, and you're scared we'll stop pretending to like you if you don't keep buying our affection." The words hung in the air like smoke from an explosion. Marcus's face flushed red as he realized Tyler had revealed too much of their private strategy sessions. Susan's smile faltered momentarily before returning with forced brightness. Robert shifted uncomfortably in his chair, avoiding eye contact with everyone. "Tyler's just being dramatic," Marcus said quickly, his nervous laughter filling the sudden silence. "You know how kids exaggerate everything they hear." But nobody corrected Tyler's statement. Nobody defended my character or challenged his assessment of our family dynamic. The silence stretched long enough to confirm that Tyler hadn't exaggerated anything. He had simply repeated conversations that had taken place multiple times in my absence. Looking around that dinner table, seeing the faces of people I had loved and supported for 32 years, I realized I was surrounded by strangers wearing the masks of family members. The real Susan, Marcus, Robert, and Tyler had been hidden behind carefully constructed personas designed to extract maximum financial benefit while providing minimum authentic relationship. Jake sat beside me, his bandaged knee, a visible reminder of how this family treated people they considered beneath their status. My 8-year-old son had become collateral damage in their campaign to exploit my misguided sense of family obligation. Excusing myself from the table required navigating another minefield of family expectations and manufactured guilt. "Where are you going?" Susan asked with mock concern. "We haven't served coffee yet, and Tyler wanted to show you his latest school project." In the bathroom, I locked the door and pulled out my smartphone with trembling hands. My banking app revealed 3 years of financial devastation disguised as family generosity. The numbers told a story I had been too emotionally invested to read clearly. January through December of the previous year alone, $18,000 transferred to various family members for various emergencies and necessities. Marcus's truck insurance, Robert's prescription medications, Susan's dental work, Tyler's school field trips, unexpected veterinary bills for their dog, rusty heating system, repairs property tax assistance, and countless smaller requests that individually seemed reasonable but collectively represented financial hemorrhaging. The correlation between family gatherings and financial requests was mathematically impossible to dismiss. Christmas Day gatherings were followed by December 26th requests. Easter Sunday dinners preceded Easter Monday emergencies. Birthday celebrations invariably led to birthday week financial crises that only Uncle Edward could solve. My phone buzzed with an incoming text message that would prove to be the smoking gun I needed to understand the full scope of their manipulation. Marcus had accidentally included me in a family group chat message intended for Susan and Robert only. Operation Guilt Trip working perfectly. The message read, Edward just committed to another chunk for Tyler's school expenses. Keep reinforcing that he needs us more than we need him. Martha's psychology advice about exploiting successful people's emotional vulnerabilities is paying dividends. I screenshotted the message before Marcus could delete it, then scrolled through weeks of similar communications that revealed the calculated nature of their approach. They discussed my earning potential and emotional weak spots, like military strategists planning a campaign. References to my loneliness, my devotion to Jake, and my desire for family approval appeared repeatedly as tools for manipulation. Additional text messages revealed research they had conducted about my job, my salary range, my potential bonuses, and even my dating life. Marcus had called my company's human resources department pretending to verify employment for a reference letter, but actually gathering intelligence about my financial capacity. Edward makes between $85,000 and $95,000 annually. One message from Marcus to Susan revealed his bonus structure could push that over $100,000 in good years. We've been thinking too small with our requests. The bathroom door handle rattled as someone tried to enter. Uncle Edward. Tyler's voice carried through the wood, with newfound politeness that felt more manipulative than his previous cruelty. Are you okay in there? My dad wants to apologize for dinner being weird. Through the door, I could hear whispered conversations between Tyler and Marcus about damage control and message management. They were strategizing in real time, trying to determine how much I'd overheard and what level of backtracking would be necessary to maintain their financial access. Opening my email app revealed even more devastating evidence of their coordinated exploitation. Forwarded messages between Marcus and Susan discussed my psychological profile and optimal manipulation techniques. They had consulted with family friends who worked in sales and marketing to develop more effective approaches for extracting money. Edward responds best to family crisis scenarios. One forwarded email explained, emergency medical bills, unexpected home repairs, and Tyler's educational needs trigger his guilt reflexes most effectively. Avoid asking for luxury items or vacation funding until you've established the crisis as life-threatening or future-altering. The most shocking discovery was a group chat called Edward Management that included Marcus, Susan, Robert, and even Tyler himself. The conversation history revealed a sophisticated 3-year plan to gradually increase financial extraction while maintaining plausible deniability about their true intentions. Tyler's participation in the chat was particularly disturbing because it revealed how they had coached him to manipulate both Jake and me. Tyler should establish dominance over Jake during family gatherings. One message from Susan instructed, this keeps Edward motivated to provide financial support to ensure his son's social acceptance within the family hierarchy. Messages from Tyler himself showed a 13-year-old boy discussing psychological manipulation strategies with adults who should have been teaching him basic decency and kindness. Jake is easy to control because he wants my approval, Tyler had written. I can make him sad whenever Uncle Edward needs reminding about family loyalty. The coaching had extended to Tyler's interactions with me as well. Act grateful, but not too grateful, Marcus had advised. Edward needs to feel appreciated, but also necessary. If he thinks we're completely satisfied, he might reduce his contributions. Reading through months of calculated discussions about managing me like a livestock animal destroyed something fundamental in my understanding of human relationships. These weren't family members who occasionally took advantage of my generosity. These were predators who had identified emotional vulnerabilities and systematically exploited them for financial gain. The bathroom fell silent except for the sound of my own breathing and the distant murmur of family conversations continuing in the dining room. They were probably discussing how to handle my extended absence and what level of explanation would be required to maintain their access to my bank account. Scrolling through bank records while reviewing their text message, history revealed the true scope of their deception. Every spontaneous family crisis had been planned in advance. Every emotional emergency had been carefully timed for maximum psychological impact. Every request for help had been preceded by strategy sessions about optimal presentation and follow-through. My phone rang with an incoming call from Sarah Martinez. Even after 6 months of separation, she remained in my emergency contact list. For a moment, I considered answering, imagining how I would explain that she had been absolutely right about everything she had tried to warn me about. Instead, I let the call go to voicemail and listened to her message. Edward, I know we haven't talked, but something made me think about you today. I hope you're taking care of yourself and not letting people take advantage of your generous heart. You deserve so much better than what you've been accepting. The irony of receiving genuine concern from someone I had pushed away while being surrounded by family members, plotting my continued exploitation, felt like a knife twisting in an open wound. Sarah had seen through their manipulation immediately, but I had chosen family loyalty over her honest assessment of toxic relationship dynamics. Returning to the living room required walking through a gauntlet of expectant faces and manufactured warmth. They had moved from the dining room to the more comfortable seating area where Robert had claimed his favorite recliner, and Susan had arranged herself on the floral couch like a queen holding court. Marcus stood by the fireplace in a pose of casual authority, while Tyler lounged across the leather chair that I had helped purchase during last year's furniture emergency. "There he is," Susan announced with theatrical relief. "We were starting to worry you had gotten lost in there." The transition to their next phase of manipulation began immediately, as if they had spent my bathroom absence rehearsing their approach. Marcus launched into what sounded like a prepared speech about family planning and financial responsibility. Edward, we've been having a productive conversation about Tyler's upcoming high school transition. Marcus began his tone suggesting this discussion would inevitably require my financial participation. Meadowbrook Academy offers an excellent summer preparation program that costs $3,000, but the investment would ensure Tyler's success in their advanced placement courses. Robert nodded with the wisdom of someone who had never personally funded anyone's education. That boy's got real potential, Edward. You wouldn't want to see it wasted because of something as silly as money. The casual assumption that I would automatically fund Tyler's summer activities felt like being punched in the stomach. They hadn't asked for my help or acknowledged my previous contributions. They had simply announced their expectation and waited for my compliance. Susan jumped into the conversation with her own carefully planned requests. "I've been looking at laptops for Tyler's high school work," she said, producing a folder of printed specifications and price comparisons. "The educational package runs about $1,500, but it includes software that will last through graduation." Tyler himself had been coached to participate in this financial ambush. "Uncle Edward," he said with practiced sincerity, "I promise I'll take really good care of whatever computer you choose for me. I know how hard you work to help our family." The performance was so well rehearsed, it felt like watching a community theater production, where everyone knew their lines except the audience member being asked to fund the entire production. Each family member delivered their scripted requests with perfect timing, building toward the climactic moment when Marcus would present their comprehensive financial demands. "We also need to discuss the house situation," Robert added with the gravity of someone addressing a board of directors. "The water heater is making concerning noises, and the HVAC system needs updating before next summer. These aren't luxury improvements, Edward. They're basic maintenance issues that affect everyone's safety and comfort." Susan produced another folder containing contractor estimates and repair schedules. "We've gotten quotes from 3 different companies," she explained, spreading papers across the coffee table like a mortgage officer presenting loan documents. "The total comes to about $12,000, but We can probably negotiate it down if we pay cash up front. For the first time in 3 years, I found my voice and spoke the truth that had been building inside my chest like steam in a pressure cooker. I've been thinking about everything I've sacrificed to support this family, I said quietly, my words cutting through their sales presentations like a sword through silk. I work 60-hour weeks at a job that demands constant overtime and weekend availability. I drive a 3-year-old car while paying for Marcus's truck. I live in a modest apartment while covering emergency repairs on this house. I ended my relationship with a woman I loved because she couldn't understand why my family's financial needs always took priority over our future together. The room fell silent as I continued speaking truths they had never wanted to hear. I've given up vacations, postponed my own major purchases, and sacrificed my personal savings goals to ensure Tyler could attend private school and Marcus could maintain his transportation. I've covered medical bills, property taxes, home repairs, and countless smaller emergencies without ever questioning whether these requests were reasonable or sustainable. Marcus's face began changing color as he realized this conversation wasn't following their carefully planned script. "Edward, you're starting to sound like you're keeping score," he interrupted with forced laughter. "That's not how family works. We don't count dollars and cents when people need help." Susan tearfully joined the counterattack with her own prepared, emotional manipulation. "You're breaking this family apart by making us feel guilty for accepting help," she said, dabbing at dry eyes with a tissue. "I never thought my own son would use money to make his family feel bad about their circumstances." Robert's contribution to their defense strategy focused on reframing my financial contributions as character flaws rather than generous sacrifice. "You've got attitude problems, boy," he declared with the authority of someone who had never supported anyone outside his immediate household. "Success has made you forget where you came from and who helped you get there." The coordinated nature of their response revealed months of preparation for this exact scenario. They had anticipated that I might eventually question their financial demands and had developed talking points to deflect criticism and maintain their access to my bank account. Tyler's participation in this emotional manipulation was the most disturbing element of their strategy. Clearly parroting responses that had been coached and rehearsed, he looked directly at me with manufactured sincerity and delivered his assigned lines with precision. "Uncle Edward, real families don't count money like you're doing," Tyler said with the rehearsed wisdom of someone far older than 13. "Family is everything, and you're being selfish by thinking about dollars when people need help." My dad explained to me that successful people sometimes forget what really matters in life. The sophistication of psychological manipulation coming from a 13-year-old boy shocked me into recognizing how deeply their programming had penetrated every level of family interaction. Tyler wasn't naturally cruel or entitled. He was a child who had been systematically taught that manipulation and emotional exploitation were normal family behaviors. Marcus sensed that their usual tactics weren't working and decided to escalate to their ultimate weapon, the formalization of financial obligation. Standing straighter and adopting the tone of someone delivering an ultimatum, he announced their final demand. "Edward, we've been talking as a family, and we've reached an important decision about our relationship moving forward," Marcus declared with the confidence of someone who believed he held all the negotiating power. "It's time you stopped treating our financial support like charity and started recognizing it as the family obligation it actually represents." The room held its breath as Marcus delivered what they clearly believed would be their checkmate move. "We want you to set up a monthly automatic transfer for $2,000 to cover ongoing family expenses. This eliminates the awkwardness of individual requests and ensures everyone can plan properly for the future." Susan nodded approvingly, while Robert crossed his arms in a gesture of unified family determination. Tyler watched with obvious excitement, probably anticipating how this guaranteed income would fund his teenage desires and social status requirements. $2,000 monthly represents a reasonable contribution from someone at your income level. Marcus continued, and it demonstrates your genuine commitment to family values and mutual support. This isn't a negotiation, Edward. This is how our family moves forward together. The ultimatum hung in the air like a sword suspended over everything I had believed about family loyalty and unconditional love. They weren't requesting my help anymore. They were demanding tribute payments for the privilege of remaining connected to people who viewed me as a walking bank account rather than a human being deserving of respect and genuine affection. Standing up from the couch felt like rising from the ashes of my former life into something entirely new and unfamiliar. The sudden movement caught everyone by surprise, particularly Tyler, who had been so confident in their collective manipulation that he hadn't considered the possibility of rejection. "Jake, we're leaving," I announced calmly, extending my hand to my son, who scrambled down from his chair with obvious relief. "I need to handle some banking before the evening ends." Marcus immediately protested, with the panic of someone watching their primary income source preparing to exit. "Edward, you can't just storm out because we're having an honest conversation about family responsibility. We can discuss the details if 2,000 monthly feels too aggressive." Susan jumped up from the couch with manufactured concern flooding her voice. "You're not thinking clearly, honey. Why don't we table this discussion and revisit it next week when everyone's had time to process?" Robert's contribution to their damage control efforts focused on minimizing the significance of what had just transpired. "Sit back down, boy. We're family and families work through their differences like civilized people." But I was already moving toward the front door, with Jake's small hand secure in mine. Their voices followed us through the foyer like the sound of sharks circling a boat that had already sailed beyond their reach. The desperation in their tone revealed how much they depended on my continued financial compliance. "You'll regret this decision," Marcus called after us, his voice carrying the threat of someone who still believed he held leverage in our relationship. "Family is forever, Edward, but money isn't everything." The drive to Tyler's private school required 23 minutes through Dallas traffic that seemed unusually light for a Sunday evening. Jake sat quietly in his booster seat, occasionally asking questions about why we had left dinner early and whether Tyler would apologize for hurting him. "Sometimes people show you who they really are," I explained carefully, "and when that happens, you have to decide whether you want to keep pretending they're different or start believing what they're actually telling you." Meadowbrook Academy's administrative offices were closed for the weekend, but the main building security guard recognized me from 3 years of tuition payments and parent conferences. A quick phone call brought the weekend bursar to meet us in the main lobby where fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across polished marble floors. "Mr. Thompson, what brings you here on a Sunday evening?" Janet Walsh had processed every one of Tyler's tuition payments since his enrollment. Her professional smile faltered when she saw the serious expression on my face and Jake's bandaged knee. "I need to formally withdraw my financial responsibility for Tyler Marcus Thompson effective immediately," I explained, producing the legal documentation that established me as the account holder and primary payment source. "I'm exercising my right to terminate this arrangement without advance notice." Janet's confusion was understandable given the unprecedented nature of my request. "Sir, this would require Tyler's immediate withdrawal from Meadowbrook unless alternative payment arrangements can be established within 72 hours. Are you certain this is the action you want to take?" "I'm completely certain," I confirmed, signing the withdrawal paperwork with steady hands. "Tyler's family will need to secure alternative educational funding or transfer him to public school for the remainder of the academic year." The administrative process took 47 minutes to complete, including phone calls to verify my identity and authorization to make binding financial decisions regarding Tyler's enrollment. Janet explained that Marcus would receive official notification on Monday morning, along with information about the 72-hour deadline for alternative payment arrangements. From the school parking lot, I called the auto loan company that held the title to Marcus's Ford F-150. As the primary borrower and legal owner of the vehicle, I had the contractual right to reclaim possession at any time without advance notice to the secondary driver. Mr. Thompson, I show you current on all payments for the 2018 Ford F-150. The customer service representative confirmed after accessing my account information. Would you like to arrange voluntary repossession, or do you prefer to handle return of the vehicle privately? Professional repossession within 72 hours. I decided providing Marcus's address and work schedule to ensure efficient vehicle recovery. I'll surrender the spare keys tomorrow morning at your downtown office. Jake fell asleep during the drive home to our modest apartment, exhausted by the emotional trauma of family betrayal and confused by sudden changes in our Sunday routine. Carrying his small body up 2 flights of stairs felt like transporting precious cargo that had been damaged by people who should have protected it. My phone began ringing within minutes of our arrival home. Marcus's name appeared on the caller ID with the persistence of someone who still believed this situation could be managed through conversation and negotiation. Edward. What the hell did you do? Marcus demanded without preamble when I answered on the 4th ring. Meadowbrook Academy called saying Tyler's tuition arrangement has been terminated. You can't just destroy my son's education because you got your feelings hurt. I terminated my financial obligations to your family. I explained with the calm precision of someone reading from a prepared script. Tyler will need to find alternative educational arrangements, and you'll need to make new transportation plans. Susan's voice joined the conversation as Marcus activated speakerphone to include the entire family in their emergency damage control session. Edward, honey, you're being extremely unreasonable. We can discuss the monthly payment arrangement if $2,000 feels too high. Robert's voice carried the bluster of someone who still believed authority could override actual power dynamics. Boy, you fix this mess immediately. Your nephew doesn't deserve to suffer because you can't handle honest feedback about your attitude problems. Tyler's voice was the most revealing because it dropped all pretense of politeness and revealed the entitled core personality that had been hidden behind practiced manipulation. Uncle Edward, you can't do this to me. My friends are at Meadowbrook, and transferring to public school would ruin my entire social life. My decision is final and non-negotiable. I stated clearly, ensuring everyone understood the permanent nature of this boundary establishment. I will no longer contribute financially to any family member under any circumstances. Past generosity was freely given, but future support is not available regardless of emergency or need. The conversation devolved into increasingly desperate attempts at emotional manipulation, financial negotiation, and outright threats designed to restore their access to my bank account. Each family member tried their specialized approach. Susan cried, Robert demanded, Marcus threatened, and Tyler alternated between apologetic charm and entitled rage. You're destroying this family over money, Marcus finally declared, with the finality of someone playing his last card. When you come crawling back, asking for forgiveness, don't expect us to welcome you with open arms. An hour later, my doorbell rang with the persistence of someone who refused to accept rejection. Through the peephole, I saw Marcus and Tyler standing on my doorstep with expressions of determined confrontation. Marcus held the truck keys in his visible hand, like evidence of his willingness to cooperate. Opening the door revealed 2 people who still fundamentally misunderstood the power dynamics of our relationship. They had arrived expecting to pressure me face to face, believing that personal confrontation would restore their ability to manipulate my emotions and financial decisions. We drove here to work this out like family, Marcus announced, extending the truck keys toward me with theatrical magnanimity. Tyler has something he wants to say, and we're prepared to make some compromises about the monthly payment arrangement. Tyler stepped forward with the rehearsed sincerity of someone who had been coached extensively during their drive across town. Uncle Edward, I'm really sorry about what happened at dinner. I didn't mean to hurt Jake's feelings, and I promise to be nicer if you'll reconsider the school situation. Instead of negotiation or emotional manipulation, I simply took the truck keys from Marcus's outstretched hand and explained the logistics of what would happen next. Professional repossession is scheduled for Tuesday morning between 9 and 11. This saves you the embarrassment of having your truck towed from your workplace or your parents' driveway. The realization that I wasn't bluffing, negotiating, or seeking compromise hit them simultaneously. Marcus's face shifted through confusion, anger, and panic as he understood that 3 years of financial dependency had ended permanently. Tyler's expression revealed the first genuine emotion I had seen from him all day: fear of losing the privileged lifestyle my money had funded. "You can't be serious," Marcus said, his voice climbing toward desperation. "Tyler's education, my transportation, mom and dad's security. You're willing to destroy all of that because we hurt your feelings." "I'm unwinding 3 years of financial entanglement with professional precision," I corrected calmly. "Your family's needs are no longer my responsibility, and my bank account is no longer available for your emergencies, requests, or demands." Tyler tried one final manipulation attempt, reaching for my arm with calculated vulnerability. "Uncle Edward, please don't punish me for what adults said. I'm just a kid trying to fit in at school." Looking down at this 13-year-old boy who had been systematically taught that manipulation and emotional exploitation were acceptable relationship tools, I felt a mixture of pity and determination. Tyler wasn't inherently evil, but he was the product of adults who had prioritized short-term financial gain over teaching basic human decency. "Tyler, you'll learn valuable lessons about consequences and personal responsibility," I told him honestly. "These are lessons that will serve you better than private school ever could." As they walked back toward their soon-to-be repossessed truck, I heard Marcus making phone calls to other family members, probably beginning the process of finding new financial targets to replace the income stream they had just lost forever. 6 months later, I stood in the kitchen of my new 2-bedroom apartment, preparing Jake's favorite Saturday morning pancakes, while sunlight streamed through windows that overlooked a small park where children played on equipment funded by community investment rather than individual family obligation. The transformation in our lives had been more profound than I could have imagined when I made that decisive Sunday evening decision to reclaim my financial independence. Jake's laughter echoed from the living room, where he was building an elaborate castle with the premium building blocks I had finally been able to afford. The extra $2,000 in monthly disposable income had revolutionized our standard of living in ways that extended far beyond material improvements. We had purchased a reliable, newer car, enrolled Jake in piano lessons he had always wanted, and established a college savings account that grew steadily each month. The immediate consequences for my former family had unfolded exactly as I had predicted during those painful weeks of enforced financial withdrawal. Tyler's transfer to public school mid-semester had created academic and social challenges that exposed the artificial nature of his previous success at Meadowbrook Academy. Without the academic support services that $1,500 monthly had purchased, Tyler struggled to maintain passing grades while adapting to an environment where entitled behavior earned discipline rather than accommodation. Marcus had lost the truck as scheduled, forcing him to rely on public transportation for job interviews and work commutes. The loss of reliable transportation had cost him 3 potential employment opportunities and severely limited his geographic employment options. Susan and Robert had been forced to implement actual budgeting for the first time in 3 years, cutting unnecessary expenses and learning to live within the constraints of Robert's Social Security and Susan's part-time retail income. The family's attempts at reconciliation had followed predictable patterns of manipulation disguised as relationship repair. Marcus had called repeatedly during the first month, offering to split the difference on Tyler's educational costs if I would consider partial financial restoration. Susan had suggested family therapy sessions where I could learn to communicate my needs more effectively while they worked on understanding my perspective better. Robert's approach had focused on minimizing the significance of our conflict, suggesting a trial period where I could prove my commitment to family values, while they demonstrated their appreciation for my contributions. Each proposal had revealed their continued inability to understand that I was no longer interested in purchasing their affection or managing their financial irresponsibility. The most telling aspect of their reconciliation attempts had been the complete absence of genuine apology or acknowledgement of wrongdoing. Nobody had expressed remorse for 3 years of systematic exploitation. Nobody had recognized the emotional damage caused by treating me like a walking bank account, rather than a family member deserving respect and genuine affection. Their focus had remained entirely on restoring financial access, rather than rebuilding authentic relationships. Tyler's individual attempts at reconciliation had been particularly revealing, because they demonstrated how thoroughly he had absorbed lessons about manipulation and emotional exploitation. His phone calls and text messages alternated between manufactured vulnerability and subtle threats, always returning to themes designed to trigger guilt responses about his disrupted education and social status. Christmas had provided the ultimate test of my resolve when Susan had called to invite Jake and me for holiday dinner, without any discussion of money or family obligations. The invitation had felt like stepping into a trap designed by people who still fundamentally misunderstood the reasons for my withdrawal from their toxic dynamic. I had attended that Christmas gathering with clearly established boundaries, no financial discussions, equal treatment for Jake, and immediate departure if any family member violated basic respect requirements. The experiment had lasted exactly 47 minutes before Tyler had attempted to reassert his dominance over Jake by accidentally knocking over Jake's carefully constructed gingerbread house. My immediate departure with Jake had sent a clear message about my new approach to family relationships. Boundary violations would result in instant consequences rather than patient explanation or repeated chances for behavior modification. The family had been genuinely shocked that I would prioritize Jake's emotional well-being over their holiday traditions and social expectations. The most unexpected aspect of reclaiming my financial independence had been the renaissance in my personal relationships and professional development. Sarah Martinez had agreed to coffee 3 months after my family intervention, curious about changes she had observed through mutual friends and social media updates. "You seem different," Sarah had noted during our first conversation in over 6 months. "More confident, less apologetic, like you've stopped carrying invisible weight on your shoulders." Rebuilding our romantic relationship had required honest conversations about boundaries, priorities, and the lessons I had learned about distinguishing between genuine love and financial manipulation. Sarah's patience during my emotional recovery had demonstrated the difference between people who supported personal growth and people who exploited emotional vulnerabilities for material gain. Our engagement 3 weeks ago had felt like stepping into a future built on mutual respect and authentic connection, rather than guilt-based obligation and manufactured dependency. Planning a wedding while maintaining healthy boundaries with both families had provided ongoing opportunities to practice new relationship skills and reinforce lessons about reciprocal rather than exploitative dynamics. Jake's transformation had been the most rewarding aspect of establishing boundaries with toxic family members. Removed from Tyler's systematic bullying and the adult's enabling behavior, Jake had flourished academically, socially, and emotionally. His confidence had returned gradually as he learned that family relationships should provide security and encouragement, rather than anxiety and confusion. "Daddy." Jake had asked one evening while we worked on homework together, "Why did Tyler always try to make me sad when we visited Grandma and Grandpa?" The question had provided an opportunity to discuss healthy versus unhealthy relationship patterns in age-appropriate terms, Some people haven't learned how to feel good about themselves without making other people feel bad, I had explained. Tyler was copying behavior he learned from adults who should have taught him better ways to handle his feelings. Professional therapy had helped both Jake and me process the emotional damage caused by 3 years of systematic manipulation and financial exploitation. Dr. Jennifer Coleman had specialized expertise in family dynamics and financial abuse, helping us understand how economic manipulation functioned as a form of psychological control designed to maintain artificial relationship hierarchies. Your family created artificial scarcity in your emotional life, Dr. Coleman had explained during one of our joint sessions. They convinced you that love and acceptance were limited resources that required purchase rather than natural expressions of genuine affection. The therapy sessions had also helped Jake develop language for describing his experiences with Tyler and understanding why some family members had treated him poorly while others had ignored his distress. Building his emotional vocabulary and recognition skills would protect him from similar manipulation attempts throughout his life. My career had benefited tremendously from the mental energy and financial resources that were no longer dedicated to managing family crises and funding other people's irresponsibility. A promotion to senior software architect had increased my annual salary to $112,000 while providing opportunities for professional development and industry conference attendance. The promotion had been partially attributed to improved focus and decreased stress levels the colleagues and supervisors had noticed throughout the spring and early summer. Eliminating the constant background anxiety of family financial management had allowed me to invest fully in professional excellence and creative problem solving. You've become more collaborative and innovative since the beginning of the year, my supervisor had noted during the promotion review. Whatever changes you've made in your personal life have clearly enhanced your professional performance and leadership potential. Community involvement had replaced family obligation as a source of meaningful contribution and social connection. Volunteering with local youth mentorship programs had provided opportunities to support children facing difficult family circumstances, while developing my own understanding of healthy relationship modeling and boundary establishment. The irony of providing genuine support to children whose families struggled financially while maintaining strict boundaries with my own financially exploitative family had taught valuable lessons about the difference between helping people in genuine need and enabling people who preferred manipulation to personal responsibility. Looking back on that pivotal Sunday evening 6 months ago, I recognized how fundamentally my understanding of family loyalty and personal responsibility had evolved. True family support meant encouraging independence and accountability, rather than creating dependency and entitlement. Genuine love expressed itself through respect and appreciation, rather than demands and expectations. The life lesson that had emerged from dismantling 3 years of financial manipulation centered on the recognition that healthy relationships required mutual respect, reciprocal consideration, and authentic connection rather than guilt-based obligation and artificial hierarchy. Money could purchase temporary compliance and manufactured affection, but it couldn't create genuine love or lasting emotional bonds. Jake and I had built a father-son relationship based on shared interests, mutual respect, and unconditional love, rather than financial stress and family drama. Our weekly trips to the Science Museum, our Saturday morning cooking projects, and our evening discussions about school friends and future plans had created memories founded on authentic connection rather than artificial obligation. The ripple effects of establishing healthy boundaries had extended throughout every aspect of our lives, from professional relationships and romantic partnerships to friendships and community involvement. Learning to recognize manipulation tactics and respond with confident boundary enforcement had transformed us into people who attracted respect rather than exploitation. As Jake ran into the kitchen to announce his completion of the castle construction project, His bright smile and excited energy reminded me daily that protecting him from toxic family dynamics had been the most important decision I'd ever made. Children deserved families that celebrated their potential rather than exploiting their vulnerabilities for personal gain. "Daddy, can we invite Sarah over to see my castle before we take it apart?" Jake asked, his enthusiasm for sharing his accomplishments with people who genuinely celebrated his creativity, reflecting the healthy relationship patterns he was learning through positive examples. Sarah's integration into our lives had provided Jake with models of adult relationships based on mutual support, honest communication, and shared joy, rather than financial manipulation and emotional exploitation. Her presence had helped both of us understand what genuine family connection looked like when built on foundation of respect rather than obligation. The profound satisfaction of building authentic relationships with people who valued our character rather than our bank account had taught us lessons about self-worth and personal boundaries that would influence every future relationship. We had learned to recognize the difference between people who enhanced our lives and people who diminished our emotional resources through constant demands and manufactured crises. Standing in that sunlit kitchen, watching Jake's excitement about sharing his creative project with someone who would genuinely appreciate his efforts, I understood that the pain of family betrayal had been necessary to clear space for relationships based on authentic love and mutual respect. Sometimes losing toxic people created room for healthy connections that nourished rather than depleted emotional energy. The future stretched ahead of us filled with possibilities built on genuine foundation rather than artificial obligation. Jake would grow up understanding that love expressed itself through respect and appreciation rather than financial demands and emotional manipulation. Sarah and I would build a marriage based on partnership and mutual support rather than guilt-based compliance and manufactured dependency. Most importantly, we had learned that family wasn't defined by blood relations or financial obligations, but by the presence of people who celebrated our successes, supported our growth, and respected our boundaries without requiring payment for their affection and acceptance. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where family members took advantage of your generosity? And how did you handle establishing boundaries while protecting the people you love most? Share your experiences in the comments below, and if this story resonated with your own journey toward healthier relationships, please show your support by hitting the like button and subscribing for more stories about overcoming family manipulation and building authentic connections. Don't forget to share this video with anyone who might benefit from understanding the difference between genuine family support and financial exploitation, because everyone deserves relationships based on respect rather than obligation. Thank you for joining me on this journey of personal growth and boundary establishment, and I wish you the courage to protect your own emotional and financial well-being while building relationships that truly honor your worth as a human being.